For more than a decade, the BGK family has been a champion of dreams. It's the dreams of those who work for a better tomorrow that drive us to reach our greatest potential. We are here to support our kingdom partners, their families, their ministries, and our communities.
BGK 24/7 Online Christian TV Network. Making what was once impossible, possible.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of In View with Sam and DiNardo. Unfortunately, DiNardo is not here to co-host with me today, but I am so happy to be joined by Margaret Debska, our National Program Manager for Rahab's Daughters, and we are so happy today to be able to interview Amanda Blackwood, who is a fellow survivor of human trafficking. And obviously, as a survivor myself, I absolutely love to highlight other survivors who have come through and are doing amazing things with their lives. And Amanda has an amazing story and is the author of many books, and she's going to tell us about some of them today. And I just can't wait. So welcome, Amanda, to the show. We are so excited to have you here today.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Margaret and I obviously have been following you on LinkedIn for a while, and we, just love to see survivors doing amazing things, and you are definitely doing that. I love that some of the proceeds from all of your books go to fight human trafficking, but we'd love to, first maybe just hear a little bit about you and your story, and then, we'd love to know more about the books too, but maybe we start with just telling us a little bit about yourself.
Of course. So I grew up in a military household. We moved constantly when I was growing up. So it became early on, it was very difficult for me to really start forming natural connections with people. Every time I would start to form a connection, I would leave them. I also grew up in an extremely abusive household. This is common amongst survivors of human trafficking, well, people that are trafficked at all, whether they're survivors or not. We look for that acceptance wherever we can get it. We're looking for the love that we're not getting at home. I'm no exception to that. I wasn't trafficked until I was 18 years old, but I was trafficked 3 different times in my life, completely unrelated in completely different areas. The last time I was trafficked, I was actually 31 years old. I was trafficked by a man that I had known for 7 years. He was a police officer in Scotland. He asked me to get a fiancé visa and move over there to be with him. And within a week of me arriving, he had all of my documentation and was beginning to traffic me. Once I managed to get out of there, it took a lot to be able to get out of there, but once I was finally able to escape, I knew that what it was that I had been through was only going to serve to be a nightmare for me for the rest of my life until I figured out how to turn it into a positive. If anything is going to exist, then God has given us a reason to keep existing also. And I knew I needed to find that purpose. And for years I put it off, but he kept telling me, you need to write your book. You need to write your book. Eventually I finally settled in and said, okay, I'm going to write the book, but I'm going to need an awful lot of help to do this, please. And I wrote the entire autobiography within the month of December in 2020.
As someone who writes books too, that is remarkable. That is definitely, God-led, because it's, I think my first one took probably a year to materialize into something, and I was writing it with a bunch of other folks. So amazing right there, Amanda. Tell us so the first one was your autobiography. That must have been quite painful to come about. How did you deal with the sort of trauma of reliving that, which I know a lot of survivors struggle with?
That was definitely difficult. I started out by starting with a blog originally, and I started talking about smaller portions of my life and putting together little pieces of my life and talking about them openly that way. I did take some of those original blogs and put them into books that I published later on, but they actually started out as blogs. So my autobiography really is my first and total dive into my own past to really dig through everything that I had gone through, starting from when I was 4 years old. The only way that I got through it was, for one, trusting in God and taking a step back and breathing whenever I felt overwhelmed. And two, I was involved with a local organization out here in Colorado called Covered Colorado. They actually helped me to find therapy and counseling, and a lot of that got me through the stuff that I was dealing with at the time. If I hadn't started therapy and counseling when I did, I don't know if I would have been able to write this book. There was a lot of stuff going on, even 10 years after I escaped human trafficking. I mean, this book came out on my 10-year anniversary from human trafficking, which ironically is June 19th of last year. So wow. If I hadn't depended on God to get me through it, I wouldn't have done it at all.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously we at Rahab's Daughters firmly believe that God is transformational in this process. And I too would have never made it through without, his hand in my life, and one of the parts of our programming is that, and that's why we're so, appreciative of your books and your story, because we can see the threads that are, guiding you there, and it's just remarkable to hear. So, your 8th book has just been released, or is about to be released. Is that right?
My 10th. This one. That actually did come out on June 30, so just a couple months ago. And this one is about my grandmother's life and her first boyfriend. So he was an airplane pilot. She was a wing walker in the 1930s and 40s, so during Prohibition, the Great Depression. And she also came from an oppressive, abusive background herself. And she rose above that, literally and figuratively, by walking on the wings of airplanes and forming this bond with this young man by the name of Arthur. He did not turn out to be my grandfather. Their lives went in separate directions, and there were a lot of details about their lives that a lot of people weren't aware of. There was even a real-life murder mystery within the family that a lot of people didn't know the answer to. And now that everybody that was involved with what happened, I was finally able to tell the story about her life, what happened to this missing person, and where the authorities may eventually find the body.
Wow. That must have been really interesting to research, and it's so cool that you're able to bring out these, histories. It sounds like an amazing book. I can't wait to read it. I love historical pieces as well, because you just learn so much about the times and how people lived in that season.
Right.
Absolutely. What was your favorite part of putting this book together?
Oh, reliving these fabulous memories of my amazing grandmother. She was such an incredible person. We were really close when I was really little, but having moved around as much as we did, of course, we drifted apart for a long time. But I moved back to be near her when I was 18, almost 19 years old, and I lived there for several years, and we were closer than ever. She told me things that she'd never told anybody, and I got to remember all of those in fine detail and remember how her own story of survival and overcoming everything that she had to get through was such an inspiration for me to be able to get through everything that I'd been through and to keep moving on with my life too.
Margaret, I'm sure you have lots of questions. I'll let you.
So we know you wrote so many books, and I'm wondering if you still continuing to publish more books in your life. What is your plan for the future?
Always, always writing. This is thanks to my amazing, wonderful husband. This is actually what I do full time now. So I have another book coming out shortly. Less than a month from when this airs. It's going to be coming out on September 1st. It will be the final in a 3-book series. And I was kind of hoping you'd ask because I have the other 2 right here. So the book series is about a group of unlikely survivors that are escaping Los Angeles during a post-apocalyptic event. The 3rd book will be called Fair Play. So it's The Unlikely, New Hope, and then Fair Play. And the underlying theme is very soft, very gentle, but the main character, as much as she has been through in her life as she's trying to lead this group of unlikely survivors through a nightmare, is that she believes in God, and several of the other people that she gets close to are atheists, and she starts to kind of convince them of the miracles that are going on around them, and that even though this isn't like a huge part of the story, this is a very important part of the plot to me, is that even though everything that I myself have been through, I still believe in God, and I know that God is who carried me through. This is really important for this main character, for her to have other people understand this about her also, as regardless of the life that she's had, regardless of the heartache and the turmoil that they're living through in the books, it's important for them to understand that she believes in God, whether they do or not. And eventually they start to understand this about her, and then they start to follow her lead, and she begins a Christian revival at the end.
Wow, that's fantastic. So of all the books that you've written, now that you're on book number 10, do you have a favorite?
Yes, absolutely. The one about my grandmother.
Wow, awesome. Well, that makes total sense. Of how many of the others are about human trafficking?
This one is Detailed Pieces of a Shattered Dream. This was one of the very first ones that I ever put together. This is what I thought was my first brush with human trafficking. I was actually 19 at the time. And my grandmother, not that one, the other grandmother, my dad's grandmother, she left me homeless on the streets because my parents told her that if she took me in, they would never speak to her again. So when I was left on the streets, it was in a Daytona Beach bus station. I knew nobody, and I had $5 to my name. A young couple took me in and said that they would allow me to stay with them for free until I was able to get on my feet. And instead, they sold me to the highest bidder. Not even as a victim of trafficking, but as a possession. The plan was then to start trafficking me out. I was able to get away, but I was locked up for 23 and a half hours with no food, no water, no bathroom facilities of any kind. And I was really lucky to escape. But one of the things that really bothered me and why I needed to write that book was because I knew there were several other young ladies there in that same building with me, and I wasn't able to get to them. I couldn't get them out. And it's haunted me ever since.
I'm so sorry for that experience. That must have been both scary and painful. I love that your heart is going to, how you can help and getting the, information out there, because it's both educational as much as it is interesting. And I know, a lot of times people are looking to sensationalize human trafficking, but I love that you tell it from a view of sort of personal experience and that of those that you come in contact with in a sort of non-sensational way. And I really appreciate that, because I do think that at times, and I'm sure you see it too, people just want to hype it up and put out the most salacious of the stories without actually showing the reality of what it looks like on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually participate in local farmers markets these days. I do quite well selling my books out there, but I take my books every week, twice a week, and I have a big banner across the top of my tent that says that I'm a human trafficking expert. And all day long, people come up to me and want to ask questions and want to tell me about something they heard of, or something that they heard happened to a friend, or somebody was followed home from a grocery store. And I have corrected so many people on the different realities what they're actually looking at, what they're experiencing, and that you don't know that this was human trafficking. You don't know if that was this person's intention. And the more that we start saying that this is what human trafficking looks like, the more danger we're putting the actual victims in, because people don't know what to look for, and they're seeing it as sensationalized and thinking that's all it is. And it's definitely a passion project for me. I don't get paid for standing out there and talking about it, but I will talk about it until I'm blue in the face.
And we appreciate that so much, because survivor advocates are the best kind of advocates, because really, unless you have been in a position to be a trafficker or be trafficked, no one else really understands what that looks like, because it has so much nuance to it, and it never looks the way that people think it does. So I obviously applaud you and thank you so much for being out there and doing all of this educating as an expert on this topic. I would love to hear a little bit more about your book, Custom Justice, which I just ordered on Amazon, so can't wait to read. Tell me a little bit about what I can expect, because it sounds so interesting to me.
The number one thing that I hear comments on is that the chapters are really short, but they're short for a reason. It's because this is a really heavy, very difficult subject material, whether it's something that you've lived through, whether you're familiar with trauma or not. Take breaks if you need to. It starts out when I'm 4 years old. So I had already experienced abuse in pretty much every form possible: physical, mental, emotional, sexual abuse, at already 4 years old. And it starts out with a very brief glimpse of a memory from Scotland from when I was being trafficked, but then sitting there and talking to my therapist and going back to my memories when I was 4 years old, and then telling the story from there and going all the way through. The last half of the book will absolutely be the most difficult. It chronicles the worst of the abuse from when I was in Scotland 11 years ago this year. It talks about some of the instances, but it doesn't go into graphic detail of the actual violence itself. It goes into more of the psychological trauma and how I was coerced into doing things that I didn't want to do. It can be very difficult to read. I actually just got done recording season 2 of my podcast, where the entire season was reading Custom Justice, one chapter at a time. And I've had a lot of people come forward and say, I've had this similar thing happen to me. I didn't realize that this is what that was. So it's more or less bringing about a lot of education to people who want to know more about human trafficking, but doing it from the first person point of view, so that they're actually feeling like they're in that moment, and they're getting that sense of, this is frightening, this is really scary, and I wouldn't have any options to get out of there either. And I tell people all the time, not having options is not knowing that you have options is not having options, period. And not having options is no way to live. It goes all the way through until April of last year. The very last page in the book, I am the absolute most proud of. I finished writing the entire thing in the month of December 2020. But in April of 2021 is when I got baptized. And the very last page of the book is actually a picture of my baptism.
Oh, that's amazing, Amanda. Oh, I can't wait. I'm so excited. I have chills. I just can't wait to read it. I'm sure it will, definitely have some challenges with it, even for me to read your story, but I still can't wait to learn more about it. And I encourage everyone, watching, please do go out and take a look at detailedpieces.com. We will put it up in a few minutes so y'all can take a look. But right before that, Amanda, how can they watch your podcast?
They can go to Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google, wherever it is that they normally watch podcasts, and just look for Amanda Blackwood, the Survivor. Starting September, the first week in September, I'm actually going to start interviewing once a week other survivors of traumatic experiences who have written about their own stories and their own recoveries. That's going to be a whole new season. It's going to be really exciting.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. We look forward to seeing that come out. Is there any excerpts from the books or anything else that you want to share with us today?
I'd love to. From my most recent one, the one about my grandmother's life, because, no story about her is ever complete without hearing the story directly from her, right? What is this photo about? I asked, somewhat confused by what I was looking at. Oh, I'll never forget this one, she laughed. We were living in the house where your mama was born when this one was taken. We kept having all these problems with mice in the basement, and I was just... So I told your granddad to keep an eye out for any good mousers, and he said that he would. I thought he might find me a cat somewhere, but he called me outside one day because there was a 6-foot bull snake up in the tree in the front yard. He started laughing and told me they were damn good mousers. I don't think he expected me to do what I did. He actually took this photo because he couldn't believe it. I grabbed a stepping stool from the kitchen and put it under that tree so I could get up in the branches. I climbed all the way up into that tree and wrestled that huge bull snake out of the tree, feeling the whole time like it was going to kill me. Then I jumped out of the tree with your granddad looking at me like I'd lost my mind. I marched straight into the house, him chasing after me the whole way, and tossed that sucker straight into the basement. But he was right. We didn't have any more problems with mice after that. She paused for a moment. Oh, look, here's a photo of me flying Arthur's old plane. He said I was a natural pilot.
She was a remarkable woman, your grandmother. There is no way I would wrestle a snake out of a tree, but I can see where you get your strength from, and that is pretty cool.
6-foot bull snake. I told that story to my husband, and he's like, she did what?
You couldn't. I'm very happy to swim with sharks, but definitely not to wrestle snakes.
Yeah, she was amazing. But that's kind of the spirit of the whole book is she did things that nobody would have ever expected a woman to do, especially at that day and age.
Just as you are doing today, Amanda, just carrying on her legacy by taking steps of bravery. And we thank you so much for that. And we thank you so much for being here today. Again, folks, if you want to listen to a podcast, please go out on Spotify and support her and human trafficking by purchasing her books at detailpieces.com. She has 10 of them out now. The newest one's heading out in a trilogy. So, some are fiction, some are nonfiction. I'm sure you can find something that you will enjoy reading. And thank you, Amanda, for thriving and sharing your stories in ways that can help others to understand and fight human trafficking. We really appreciate you today. Before we go, we just want to remind everybody that the Rahab's Daughters Gala is coming up in just another week. And so it's going to be the 20th. Whether you want to attend virtually or attend in person, tickets are available on our website, www.rahabsdaughters.org. Please hop over there, and if you haven't already purchased your tickets, we would really appreciate them. We've got to give head counts to the venue in the next 48 hours, so we really need you guys to hop in, buy your tickets, and if you'd like to sponsor, we still have a few sponsorship slots available, and we would really appreciate the help. We want to see more thriving survivors like Amanda, and we need your help to achieve that. It can only be done with you. Margaret, can you tell us a little bit about what they can expect at the gala this year?
Sure. So this year we're gonna have so much fun on the gala. We're gonna have live dance instructors. They're gonna teach us dancing. We're gonna have silent auction. We're going to have some raffle prizes. We're going to have live streaming to our virtual guests as well. We're going to have different engagement games through the whole night. So we invite everyone to join us. It's going to be fun to celebrate. And we're looking forward to see you there and support Rahab's Daughters.
Absolutely. And if you can't attend, we would definitely appreciate a donation of any size. We have a goal this year to meet, and it takes us about $400,000 to $500,000 a year to serve between 100 and 150 survivors and their children. And to achieve that goal, we need your help. And so please, if you can attend, consider making a donation. Please don't buy a ticket unless you're going to attend. We would very much prefer that you just give a donation versus buy a ticket, because obviously if you buy a ticket, we will buy food for you and that kind of thing. But if you're not coming, it's best that you just give a donation. So thank you so very much, and we can't wait to see you there. If you haven't already been onto Amazon or detailedpieces.com, please do support survivors as they're thriving. We are so blessed to have had Amanda here today, and to see another survivor just thriving as she celebrates her 11th anniversary out of human trafficking. And she has an amazing story to tell of abuse that started as early as 4, and the fact that she has made it through and is now thriving in this way is an absolute testament to God and to her strength. If you want to read from where she gets her strength, clearly her grandmother is amazing, and so you can read all about it in her books. So please do support that. Other than that, we look forward to seeing you next time on In View. Thanks so much for being here.